wanted to ask you about what exactly happened to make you realize that this Hezbollah, at least in the American media regarding the war, was just complete lies that they were saying to you in order to playing off of people's ignorance of military, the way the military works in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of how big the bombs you're allowed to drop on civilian populated areas and whatnot.
Right. So I've definitely witnessed United States forces commit objectively what amounts to war crimes. So I'm not being an apologist here, but around like October 13th, I was like, God damn, they're making us look like the good guys because the moral equivalence is so insane between the two, and the double
Right.
standards are so. There's such a great distance between U.S. conduct, and as bad as that is, and then what the IDF is doing. So first of all, I was tracking what was going on in Palestine before this happened. I started to understand what Israel was through military literature. The first operational autopsy I ever read was that in the 2000, it was the official position of a U.S. Army War College out of Fort Leavenworth that the IDF got its ass kicked in 2006 by Hezbollah when Hezbollah was
Yeah.
way less powerful
Right.
than they are now, and that kind of started, and that was in like 2009. So I had like years to start deconstructing the propaganda that I got pushed when I was like a like white kid in boarding school with like Zionist roommates, or like a white kid in Texas around a bunch of Christian evangelicals. I was like,
Sure.
okay. So it was through military literature, being like, yeah, they're kind of an incompetent conscript army. All we do is give them weapons. We send advisors to train them on stuff, but they don't listen to anybody. So that's kind of how it started. And then I was like, oh wait, this is technically apartheid. This is definitely, according to international law, occupation. So, and I knew about how bad it was going to be, the response after the escalation on October 7th. It wasn't an
Yes.
act of war. It was an escalation. I mean, objectively, the conflict was still ongoing. To say that it was an act of war or there was a peace is absurd. So the escalation on October 7th happened. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be bad. They're going to use their Daia doctrine, which it basically is collective punishment of civilians in order to pressure the associated militant population into laying down arms or giving political concessions that they don't want to give. So it's like, okay, yes, they're literally, their military doctrine is a war crime. It's the collective punishment of the civilians.
Right.
So I knew it was
Sure
going
is.
to be bad. I had no idea how bad it was going to be because they started doing things that I hadn't seen them do, at least not in 2014. During Operation Protective Edge and stuff, they were just straight up. They weren't carpet bombing. That's the wrong term.
Right.
But they were
More
targeting.
like
They were drop.
prayer rug bombing. Like
Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So they were dropping ordnance that I know that we could. My best friend was a fire controls officer in Baghdad during the Iraq War. He like, and then I did kinetic strike targeting in Afghanistan. It's like we can't drop those ordnance. Like we would be in jail. So and they're just dropping it on the most densely populated civilian place on earth, and there's something called like a collateral damage estimate and collateral damage methodology that you do.
Right.
And they just weren't doing it. So I would say it's inaccurate for the most part to say that they weren't targeting Hamas. I mean, they were. They don't care about casualties at all. In fact, the more the better. So getting targeting data on a GPS location off of like a Hamas guy or a resistance fighter's cell phone, and he's like in an apartment building with hundreds of people, well, they're just going to drop the apartment building, the entirety of it.
Right.
So that's how they do things. We wouldn't, because they refuse to do special operations. So because I was in a special operations unit, every time I would have to go and interrupt my Star Wars marathon or Game of Thrones marathon or Harry Potter marathon, it was because there was some like Al Qaeda or Taliban guy in a guest house that was attached to a civilian building, and that becomes a dual use facility. So a dual use facility is one that has a civilian function and a military function. If there's militants in it, it becomes a dual use. And based off of our engagement parameters during Obama's surge, which was like one of the bloodiest periods of the Afghan war, we still couldn't drop it. So you'd have to send in a special operations force, which is thought to reduce civilian casualties because like we're somewhat competent.
Right.
And like not air holing kids like the IDF snipers are. to go and minimize that and still get the target. But they refuse to do special operations, mostly because they're a conscript army that can't fight. But yeah, so that's just one aspect.
Do you need special zoning for a dual use facility?
Yeah, I mean, look.
Do they have the permits for it? Is the thing?
Look, I mean, we all know that fascists love to weaponize bureaucracy.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. They didn't have the permits for a dual-use facility. So Al Shifa Hospital did not have the permits.
Yeah, if you don't get the permit for dual use, then we're just going to kill everybody. That's kind of
well, they didn't have the permit for single use either. The single use being saving people's lives and training doctors. I still am hung up on when you described. I didn't know. I mean, I know that Israel sends people all over the world, South America, U.S. cities, inner cities, to train, police forces. I didn't realize that we send them foreign advisors and they don't listen. And I just have to imagine like a comedy sketch where it's just a bunch of Israelis with their feet up on the table, and there's like a foreign advisor who's really trying to like get them to improve their game and be like, look, you guys got your asses kicked in 2006. The Gaza operation isn't going the way, and them just being like, do you live here?
Yeah.
Are you from here?
Yeah. Have you even been on Birthright?
Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish?
Are you Jewish? Yeah. It's just like a Hillel guy or a Chabad guy just comes up. Are you even Jewish? So, mother or father?
Gentlemen, the building is surrounded. Okay, Are you Jewish?
You don't know what it's like. Have you had Disco MDMA pizza? Thank you, Adam. Yeah, so you talk about like the incompetency of the Israeli army, of the IDF, and I think that a lot of the propaganda around the IDF in Western media has been how competent they are. Like the entire narrative has been, this is the most technologically amazing army in the world. They don't just have soldiers; they have like super soldiers who can, have a chip in their head that's basically the Waze app, and they can tell you, where exactly to go, and they have cameras everywhere, so they know every single thing that's going on in Gaza at all times.
Yeah, they're all like, are you Sarah Connor?
Yeah,
so.
exactly. I'll use Sarah Connor. I think this, for anyone who's been paying attention for a while, you've kind of have known pre-October 7th that the IDF, the propaganda around them being the best army in the world, is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But now it seems to be more and more on display. Can you explain to me how what exactly you see in that army that makes them more incompetent than, let's say, the United States Army?
And if you can try to do it in a way that doesn't contain any helpful hints for them on how to improve.
Don't tell them how to be better.
Oh God.
Just insult them and discourage them and bring them down. No constructive criticism, please.
Yeah.
Look, if they're not listening to official U.S. military liaisons, they're not going to be listening to Hezbollah for Hezbollah for advice. I mean, hey, you guys got an awesome thing going on, but if they're not listening to them, they're not. Well, they don't listen to anybody.
They're only lilistening to this to try to find something to get us canceled on.
They're crowdfunding to try and create. Yeah, they're crowdfunding to try and create a good Hasbara podcast.
That's right.
Not going well.
I think Elon Levy's trying that, and it's not going well.
No.
Yeah.
All right, but to Matt's question.
Okay, here we go. This is one of my favorite subjects. It's actually really not hard to understand why they suck so much. Okay. First of all, they're conscripts. They're not professional soldiers. So, they do like 2 years, right? That's the general draft. Essentially, it's a 2-year term of service. Guess what? You are still in the military after 2 years. You're still a dumbass private. That's like not even long enough to know how to do your job. Like I didn't become a non-commissioned officer until like I was like 3 years in.
Right.
One of my buddies, he was a West Point major in the artillery. He didn't become major until he was like 33. They've got 25-year-old majors running around. It's like you don't have the amount of maturity or both like mentally, intellectually, or emotionally to like be running an entire battalion of dudes like at 25. Are you kidding
Admiral McFly.
Yeah.
No, straight up. It's the first time I started realizing this was when I would see the lists of casualties that, either from October 7th who were IDF soldiers or past that. And they would have their name, rank, and age, and it would just be like, Major General Lieb, 19, and I'm like, why do they have so many major generals, and why are they all dead?
Oh my God, we're gonna have
privates at all?
We're gonna have to do a Gilbert and Sullivan parody now. I am the perfect model of an Israeli major general. I am the perfect model of a Sabra major general.
Oh, damn it! All right,
okay, I'm on
Write it down. We're doing it.
I'm on it. I am on it.
Fucking musical theater. Thank you so much for watching that. Please like and subscribe, and please support us. Patreon.com/badhasbara or go to badhasbara.com. Ah.